Dana Larsen, hi there. Good afternoon.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having me.
So why?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. What was going through your mind when you sent all BC MLAs magic mushrooms and coca leaves for Christmas?
Well, as you mentioned, I run the Coca Leaf Cafe and the Medicinal Mushroom Dispensary, and we got raided in November in quite a big police action. And I wanted to show our elected officials what these things really are. There's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to a coca leaf or a mushroom. And in fact, both these substances have a lot of benefits and a lot of positive uses. And it's very strange that our laws would treat a coca leaf exactly the same as cocaine. And so the part of this idea is to help educate these officials. I invited them all to come down to see our operation, the kind of people that we serve and the kind of customers that we have, and maybe educate themselves and learn at a time when drug policy issues are of vital importance here in British Columbia.
Well, and the actual action, when you're saying if this was tied to the raids, I mean, it was Vancouver police who raided your store. So why target the provincial politicians?
Oh, this was clearly from pressure at the provincial level. We've been open here since 2019 at the Coca Leaf Cafe. We've had a business license that was renewed every month by the city. Police would come in here fairly often to ask to see footage from the video cameras we have out front about real crimes that had been committed. And so we got raided because there was a story in May about that company that was importing coca leaves to make cocaine, and we got tied into that story. And the VPD said they began their investigation in June. So this wasn't about us and our actions. They could have come in here on day one. This is about politicians being embarrassed about what we're doing. The same reason the Drug User Liberation Front got raided. They'd been open for a long time too. These are politically motivated raids, and I think they came about because of controversy and pressure at the provincial level. And so that's why I sent these products to all of our MLAs.
Well, you know that these substances are illegal. So what kind of reaction did you expect to get?
Well, the reaction has been hysteria and panic and opening the packages with rubber gloves on and calling the police to dispose of a leaf. But, here's what a coca leaf looks like. It's nothing to be afraid of, it's nothing to be concerned about. And it's actually got millennia of social, cultural, spiritual, and use around it, medicinal use around it. These things are highly relevant to millions of people around the world. So, yeah, I expected them to overreact and to call the police and to get all worked up about it. But that's kind of the point, because you don't need to get worked up about these things. Mushrooms and coca leaves are harmless and, in fact, quite beneficial for most of the people that use them. And so, to me, this shows kind of the hysteria and ignorance at the root of the drug war, that getting a leaf in the mail causes us a great amount of panic and concern when there's no need for that.
I want to go back to when your stores got raided. At that time, you spent, I think it was seven hours in jail. Is that right?
Yeah, I was held in police custody for 7 hours, and then I was released with no charges or conditions, and we reopened our main storefront the next day.
Okay, so any legal blowback from mailing these drugs to MLAs?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's possible I'll be charged for that, but I very much doubt it. I mean, we're talking about, giving away 80-something grams of mushrooms and a handful of coca leaves. I'd be very surprised if this becomes something that they want to charge me for. And, certainly there's plenty of legal arguments we'd love to advance in court about the medicinal and spiritual and social and cultural relevance of mushrooms and coca leaves. And I think we can have a lot of success. If they choose to charge me over coca leaves, I think we can have a lot of success in challenging those laws and challenging a system that treats a coca leaf the same way it treats cocaine. That's absolutely absurd by any measure.
So your stores were raided. You were held in police custody. Are your stores today back up and running?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We reopened the main location the next day. The other two took a little longer to get open, but they've been reopened as well. And we've also been able to expand a little bit our Get Your Drugs Tested service that we operate, which is funded entirely by cannabis and mushroom sales. We've opened a second location since the raid next to our Broadway spot. So, not only are we rebuilding our business, but we're continuing to provide the busiest free street drug analysis center in the world right here in Vancouver.
Now, can you just, so when you say your stores are open again, you're still selling illegal products in those stores?
We still sell we're the Medicinal Mushroom Dispensary. We still sell psilocybe mushrooms. We still sell coca leaves. We sell other things like kratom and other herbs and medicines as well, but those are our biggest items. And absolutely, we've continued to do what we've done. There's been no charges, and I don't really expect further legal problems. And of course, there's over a dozen other mushroom shops in Vancouver other than mine that have not been raided and that are not in the news. And so that also points to me this is more of a political raid than it is a legal one, or
Well,
they'd be targeting every shop in the city.
But people who are listening right now, could be shaking their heads. Can you just explain for us how it is you are allowed to run businesses licensed by the city when you're selling illegal products?
Well, that's a good question, I suppose. And, if we look back to cannabis legalization and the days before that, there was dozens and dozens of cannabis dispensaries in Vancouver and in cities all across the country and all across British Columbia, many of whom got licensed by the provincial governments. And at that time, if you asked the VPD, well, why aren't you raiding these shops? They would say, look, it costs us over $30,000 to do a raid. It's a lot of time and effort. They typically don't get charged. They reopen again the next day. People see this as a waste of police resources, and they're absolutely right. So we do have some legal challenges. The city, which did grant us business licenses and which renewed them for many years, is now challenging those licenses. We were actually supposed to have a hearing with Vancouver City Council in December about the status of one of our licenses, but that hearing got put off at the last minute by the city. Now it's going to be in February or March or something. So we're kind of a hot potato, and they don't really want to deal with us, I think. But this is the kind of situation that happens. You get these impossibility of enforcing these laws. If you look back to alcohol prohibition, speakeasies were all over the place too, and they couldn't enforce the laws against those as well. When there's mass disagreement with these laws, you can't enforce them. It's impossible. And so they can choose to raid me again if they want to, but there's a dozen other, almost 20 other dispensaries in the city. They don't have the resources to go after us, and the courts aren't willing to punish us because we're not really doing anything wrong.